finishing world. Time to crochet, double crochet. You want it with fantasy. Sunset knit, finishing with grab your knitting needle kits, drawers and socks, sweaters and mitts. Time to get your knitting fix. You will find out, you will pass on. Everything is made from.
Hi y'all. Welcome to the first episode of the Yarn This podcast. I'm Shama, Jessie's Girl 84 on Ravelry and Instagram, and this is going to be my first episode, so excuse me if I'm a little nervous or whatever. I've been knitting for about 13 years. I started just after 9/11. I was at Walmart with my two sons and we found a free Harry Potter Gryffindor scarf pattern. And I guess because of all the turmoil, I felt like the boys needed some comfort and warmth, so I decided to learn to knit. I found a book called A Passion for Knitting, and I bought it and I read it, and I got very excited. I learned how to do what I needed to do, cast on, bind off, and I even knit my first two projects from that book. One was a cell phone holder, and the other was a hat knit flat and seamed up. Both of them were very hideous. I thought they were amazing and lovely, but as time went on and I began to look at things a little more objectively, I could tell that they were not at all good. My my older son, used to play a sweet potato ocarina. So he was playing during that time and carrying it around with him everywhere, and dropped it on the sidewalk one day and knocked a little chip out of it, and I thought, I have just the answer. He needs to carry his ocarina in this cell phone case, and that sweet boy carried that thing around in that cell phone case. It had a long strap on it. I'll need to bring it next time and show you. But he carried it around in there until he quit playing his ocarina. And the hat, I think it was garter stitch, and again I still have it, knit flat. It was just a rectangle, seamed up at the end. I didn't know how to seam, but it was an okay seam considering. But then the top was open, and I think I crocheted a chain and then tied it up at the top. And again, I was super proud of this hideous creation. And my cousin came to visit, and I said, I have a present for you. I'm going to give you this hat that I knitted. And so when she left that day, she didn't take it, and I thought, oh, she must have forgotten. And I later realized that she just probably didn't want to hurt my feelings and thought, oh, I hope I can get out of here without that. Anyway, so that's how I started. I wasn't sure exactly. I still wasn't quite getting everything. So I found a new book, and as you'll find out when you watch my podcast, I'm very careful about what I say. So I'm not going to say the full title of this book, but it was the S&B book. But that book I read from cover to cover. I could not put it down. So I read it from cover to cover, and when I finished that book, I got it. And I couldn't be stopped from that point on, and I have knit anything you can imagine, from the first scarves to gloves and hats, dishcloths, a lot of stuffed animals. I have 2 nephews and a niece, and my nephews are 8, 6, almost 7, and my niece is not 2 yet, so she doesn't understand, but my nephews love my knitting, so I've done a lot of stuffed things for them. So I'll be showing you the things that I knit, things that I want to knit, and I'll just take you through my knitting world, and probably some more things as well about my life. But a little bit more about me. I've been married to Chuck. We got married in 1987 when I was 21 and he was 22. So in September we'll be coming up on our 28th wedding anniversary, and he's very supportive of my knitting habits and of this podcast. And we have 2 wonderful sons. Logan, our older son, is 24. He just graduated from college. He's a waiter, but he's in the process of moving up in the company that he works for. He works for Macaroni Grill. And then our younger son, Kelby, is going to be 21 in May. And right now he's just working at Whataburger and plans to go back to college. So, that's my family. Oh, and my nephews have called me their knitting butler because I go sometimes and help out around the house and help out with them. And I knit for them. So I'm a butler and I knit. So I'm their knitting butler. Let's see. Why did I decide to start this podcast? I'm not a designer. I don't have an Etsy shop. I don't dye yarn. I've dyed it twice just for my own pleasure. But I just love knitting, and I have a passion for it, and I just wanted to share it and make some more knitting friends. So that's why I decided to start this podcast. And I'm sorry I keep looking down. I have my notes right here in front of me. Quickly, the segments that I plan to feature on each episode, and probably not always have all of the segments depending on what's going on. But the first one is going to be called Puppy Love, and that'll be my works in progress. The second one will be Another One Bites the Dust, and those will be my finished objects. The final countdown is projects that are soon to be finished or maybe started. Right now, I don't have startitis, but I have many projects that I'm just dying to knit. Number 4, anytime I come across any problems I've had with a project that may be able to help you with, or just to share my frustrations, it's going to be called Danger Zone. The next one, We Are Family. It's going to be about my knitting groups. I have 2 that I meet with in real life, and then I have an online group that I'm very active with. And also knitting events and other podcasts and podcasters. I'm going to recommend ones that I listen to. I'll probably and watch. I'll probably only talk about 1 or 2 a week, but I'd like to share those with you in case you haven't found them yet. And I'd like to hear if you have any that you especially like. If I have enough interest in the podcast that I start a Ravelry group, maybe we can start a thread on our podcasts that we watch and listen to. The next one will be I've Done Everything for You, and that'll be about gift knitting. And my gift knitting primarily revolves around my family. Like I said, my nephews, my niece, my parents, sometimes my sons and my husband, and they appreciate my knitting, my sons and husband, but they don't always want something. So that'll be the segment on gift knitting. Number 7. Okay, I'm not much of a spinner yet. I have a wheel. I got very excited when I got her. I painted her blue. I decoupaged Doctor Who prints on both of the treadles, and I named her Amelia Rose. But I'm not a good spinner yet. I have some of my friends that live close by that are, and so I plan to get more practice and help and have that segment be on here at least sometimes, and that will be called You Spin Me Right Round. And then my last one, my miscellaneous section, will be 1 week. Now, when I came up with the titles for these sections, I originally planned to play a clip of these songs to start each section, but I'm not sure if that would get me kicked off of YouTube, so I'm going to have to play it by ear. I would love to put just a short clip of each of these songs in, because I'm a child of the 80s, and I love these songs, and most of them are 80s songs. But anyway, let me start with my segments talking about my puppy loves, my works in progress. The first thing I'm working on is my Rescue Me Chin Boy and Show Me the Stars socks by CC Allman. She has done a series of Doctor Who inspired socks, usually with a yarn club, but not always. CC is also known as Java Pearl on Ravelry, and she and her daughter Damaris have a podcast, the Geeky Girls Knit podcast, which I'll talk about probably next week. But I love their podcast, and we watch a lot of the same things and have a lot of the same interests. But back to the socks. I'm knitting these on size 1.5, 2.5 millimeter needles. And this is the sock so far. Oh, I've got my TARDIS needle holder, needle case. And this is what I've gotten so far. This is the foot, and I've started up the leg. I'm not exactly sure how high I'll go. I don't like really short socks, so I'm sure I'll go up a few more inches before I do the ribbing. The yarn that I'm using is Mustache Yarn and Fiber Ritz sock in the TARDIS colorway, dyed by Stacy Dawson. She does an amazing job, and I have several skeins of her yarn, and I'm sure you'll be seeing those as I'm going to be knitting several projects with them coming up. That's a really fun knit, and it's moving along slower than I would like because I was knitting on other things at the same time, which I don't usually do. I don't usually have more than a couple of projects going at once, but I'm doing these in the Doctor Who knit along with the Geeky Girls Knits, as well as the Pop Culture knit along for the Yarnder Woman podcast. And those can be found on my project page, which I will link in the notes. And that is all that I have on the needles right now. However, as soon as I finish, I'm going to cast on the Stripy Sleeves of Warmth, also by CC Allman, again Java Pearl. This is a free pattern, more of a recipe, I guess, that she adapted from someone else, and she got their permission to print it up, and she gives it away as a free pattern, but you have to join her Java Pearl design group on Ravelry, and then she will gift it to you. It's very simple, striped arm warmers that start right above the elbow and go all the way down to the wrist, and she used dice and rolled the dice to decide how many rows her each stripe should be. And I'll show you the yarn that I'm going to use. I just showed you my socks out of the Mustache Yarn and Fiber Ritz sock in the TARDIS colorway. Well, I bought 2 skeins of that yarn at the DFW Fiber Fest, so I'm going to use this for one of the colors. I'm also going to use this pink yarn and this purple yarn, and one of these, I believe the purple, is Madeline Tosh that I got last summer on a trip to Indiana. I got these at a precious little yarn shop in Kokomo, Indiana, called Groovy Girl Yarn. Sadly, she's gone out of business, and I'm thankful that I was able to go and meet Mandy, the owner, and buy some of her yarn. But anyway, I'll put in the show notes exactly what that yarn is. But these are the 3 colors that I'm going to knit my stripy sleeves of warmth out of, because I tend to get kind of cold at this time of year in the cold air conditioning, and I think they'll be a good addition to my wardrobe, as well as something really fun to knit. Also, and this is way outside my comfort zone, I'm going to cast on a 3rd project. I just found Gnome is Where the Heart Is by Susan Claudino. She designs the cutest little knitted amigurumi, which, again, like I said earlier, I love to knit those things. These are for me, however. I just finished, no, I'll talk about that in a minute, sorry. Gnome is Where the Heart Is just these little gnome heads, and she used stripy yarn for the hat, and then for the face she used like a cream yarn, and I believe she might have used Palette. I'm looking at her project page, but she also used No Maker's stripy yarn for the hats. And I have recently joined the No Makers, it's a mini skein club. This one was Robots, Rainbows, and Unicorns. This is the first one, and it's, I believe, one of 3 or 4, I can't remember, shipments. Anyway, this is my first one, and these are the 5 little skeins. The first one is little plastic bricks, that's the colorway, and her house gnome. Unicorn freckles, which is this one, I believe. I hope I'm getting these right. Robots like rainbows. Candy Mountain, and this is Sparkle Gnome, and then the last one is Robot Patina. Anyway, I'm going to knit 1 or 2 little gnomes out of each of these. I've got enough of each of these that I could do 2, and I might hang them on this little tree that I have. So that's what I'm going to start in just a few minutes, or later today sometime. And this week I only have one finished object that I'm going to show you, and I wanted to have something to show you today, so I quickly finished this up. I started knitting this just before Easter, and I was going to knit one for my nephews and niece, and I just didn't have time, so I put it aside, and when I picked it up, it went really, really quickly. This is another one by Susan Claudino called Bon Bon. A cute, as you can see, little bunny. Big feet. And I'm not sure that I put these on right, but when you stand him up, they go out to the side. He is really, really cute and really quick and easy. And her design and construction ideas are just, I've never knit anything like them. You attach as you go, and I'm not going to give you details because this is a paid-for pattern. But you attach as you go instead of sewing them on at the end. So this is the Bon Bon pattern by Susan Claudino. I knit this on size 5 needles, 3.75 millimeter, and I used some leftover yarn, and I'm pretty sure this is Hobby Lobby I Love This Yarn stripey yarn. I'm not positive though because this was in my leftover box, but you'll see that when I'm knitting my stuffies, I usually don't use good yarn. I usually use leftovers and acrylics because a lot of times they do go to the kids, and I like to save my nicer yarn for projects for me, or at least for someone who'll appreciate the nicer yarn. But so anyway, this is my Bon Bon, and he will probably be sitting on my shelf behind me if I can get him to sit up. Well, we'll work on that later. Anyway, so here he is, and that is my finished object for the week. I did have a couple of problems that were my own problems, not with the pattern at all. Knitting him, as you attach the arms, I still had the leftover yarn that I had cut when I finished it off, and for some reason on both arms I picked up and started knitting with the tail of the arm, and it was late last night, and when I figured it out, I started to rip back, and I thought, no, if I do this tonight, I'm just gonna create more problems for myself. So I just put it down, went to bed, and this morning it was an easy fix, and I just finished it up. So that was my danger zone for the week. It wasn't a big deal, but late at night when you're tired, even the smallest mistakes can turn into something huge. We are family. Knitting groups. So every Thursday night I have a group that I meet with here. I live in Houston, and we meet in a little town called Tomball at a Panera Bread, and every Thursday night we have a meetup. I don't always get to go, but I like to go almost every week, and it's a great group of girls that spin and knit, crochet. We've got some that quilt. Some of us are cross stitchers, and we'll be starting a stitch along. At least 2 of us will pretty soon, and I'll get into that another time. But I also have another group, a smaller group that I meet with the first Monday of the month. Mostly people that I go to church with, but we've brought in some other people as well, and it is a neat little group. And like I said, we meet the first Monday of the month at a Barnes & Noble. So I like having people to knit with in person as well as my online friends. And I think it'll be fun to have more hopefully more friends from this podcast to knit with as well. Okay. I believe that's all that I had for this week. I'll go back over and see what mistakes I made, and maybe you could give me some ideas of what I could do better. And hopefully I'll improve every week, and I'll have more things to show you. And if you stuck around till the end, I appreciate it. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Knit on.